Hey guys, it's Katie here with Life Mundane. Welcome back to my channel. I'm excited to have you guys here today as we're going to be talking all about homeschooling in the state of Kansas. If you want to know what are the laws, what should I expect, what kind of resources or support are there for me, we're going to cover all of that in today's video. So let's get started. So before we jump into the meat of this video, I do want to say that if you enjoy videos on topics like homeschooling, home management, parenting, things like that, I would love if you take a quick second to subscribe, as I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday on those very things. We also wanted to let you know that this is part of a collaboration of some awesome homeschool mom YouTubers out there. All of us are taking the time to post how to homeschool in our state. So if you guys want to see how to homeschool in other states, maybe you're researching where you want to move or you want to know about different states' laws and requirements, look down below in the playlist and you guys can check that out to find out more information there. It's hosted by the Ingrid Chronicles, which is an awesome YouTube channel. Ingrid is a friend of mine. Love her to death. You should definitely go check out her channel especially, and I'll drop that down in a separate link in the description below. As we jump into this, I want to say that this is not meant to be legal advice. I do recommend you do your own research, just double check things. One, because homeschool laws change, and they can change. This is done in 2019. This is the most up-to-date information that I found from several resources. I did a lot of research before doing this video, and this is the most updated information that I found, but it's always important to do the research yourself, know where and how to find the laws, because it's not always as easy as you might think. And so know how to find them, and I have dropped links to make it so much easier for you guys down in the description below to show you a couple of the resources where I found links, where I found the information, and we'll get into that just here a little bit more in a second. But I want to encourage you to go out and double check all this information for yourself to make sure that no changes have been made since filming this video. All right, so what is the first step? Like, what should you do? Well, the first thing is that Kansas, you should know that Kansas does not actually recognize homeschooling. There is no such thing as homeschooling in the state of Kansas, which I know you're sitting here going, well, then why am I watching this video? But it's okay. It's just a technicality. In the state of Kansas, we are actually seen as a non-accredited private school instead of a homeschool. That means that we follow the regulations that a non-accredited private school does, and but we can still home educate. It's just I'm the administrator of my personal non-accredited private school, and my students are, my children. But didn't want you to be confused if you're looking through some of those documents and those laws and questioning why you're not seeing a lot of things specifically about homeschooling. So when it comes to registering, that is the very first step that you're going to want to take when it's time to set up your homeschool in the state of Kansas, and that is to register your school. You're going to go down to the link below. Again, dropped it down there for you guys to make it so much easier, but you're going to register your school with the state of Kansas. They're going to ask you things like your name, your phone number, your email address, your physical address, and you're going to do this only one time. This is really important to know because they are not going to send you a letter of approval or that they've accepted your thing. When you've typed it in, you've submitted it, it is approved and it is sent in. They will give you a confirmation screen there, and that's the only time you're going to get that piece of information. So I recommend printing off several copies of that screen, and recommend saving it as a PDF or as a JPEG or something to have for future in case there was ever come into question whether you had actually registered with the state of Kansas. So you're going to make sure that you do that. You're also going to name your school. This is really important because this will be your official title for your school. Now, it's not going to be on most documents that you see. It's really not something I use a whole lot, but if you decide to graduate your child from homeschooling, you are going to have that name on your document. So just think through, Sparkle Unicorn Academy may not be the most professional or exciting thing for a high schooler to put on their application to a college or university. So just think through what you're going to name it. Maybe I'll do another video if you guys would like to see a video on how to go about naming your school and a few ideas for that. Drop it down in the comments below. I would love to hear, and I'd be happy to think about doing that video for you guys. When it comes to your registration, like I said, you register once. But then the only other time you need to do anything with your registration is when you move. And when you move, you can just go back online, you can update your information, but you're gonna need the information from the original document to show what date your school was officially set up. And so make sure that, again, you have that in your files. You're going to update it with your current address, and that's the only thing you need to do with it. So just keep that in mind, that if you've moved within the state of Kansas, you need to update it. If you've moved outside of the state of Kansas, then obviously you need to follow through with whatever rules that they have in their state. Okay, so the first step is to register your name and your school with the state of Kansas. But what's step number 2? Now, this is optional, not mandatory, but I do highly recommend you check into the Teacher Parents Association. This is a local resource for all Kansas homeschoolers that gives great information on where co-ops are in the state of Kansas, where you can get information about how to get started. They have great blog articles. They have all sorts of resources to get you connected and really help with the nitty-gritty after you've decided to homeschool. They also host a yearly convention once a year where they have speakers come in. They have different workshops you can go to. You can go shop all the curriculum right at your fingertips, and it is a great resource, again, for homeschoolers. So I recommend checking out their website, and I'll drop it down below. And I recommend joining and becoming a member of that organization if you choose to do so. And part of that is because I would also say the next step, again, not mandatory in the state of Kansas, but I just cannot emphasize how much I would recommend this, is to join the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. That's hslda.org, and this is your national thing. So TPA is more of your local resource. HSLDA is a national homeschooling legal defense association. They are going to be your go-to for things like homeschooling special needs kids, helping you write up high school transcripts, answering your questions about legalities with homeschooling. If there were ever to come into any kind of question, you and your ability to homeschool, you can contact them if you are a member. They will give you free legal advice and help you fight that situation if needed. There are a few situations that they cannot get involved in, and I believe a lot of that is within family court. So if you're in that situation, that might not be the best fit for you, but I still would recommend looking into their website and their information. The reason why I suggest recommending TPA first and signing up as a member there is because it will actually give you a discount on your HSLDA membership. So you can do one or the other. You can do them in a different order, but if you want to save money like most homeschoolers like to do, then you'll probably want to join the TPA membership first and then get the discount on the HSLDA. It is like homeschool insurance. I always tell people you wouldn't drive your car without insurance, you wouldn't own your home without insurance, so don't homeschool without insurance. It's just nice to know that you have that support there in case it were to ever come into question. Okay, so now we've gotten set up with our name, we've gotten set up with the TPA Association so we can get plugged into local resources in our area, we've got our HSLDA membership. Now let's get back to the laws. What are the laws for homeschooling? Okay, so as far as teachers go, we don't have any requirements for having a certain degree or background in teaching, but it is required that they have competent instructors for teaching. As long as you are a competent instructor, which means that you don't have to know everything in advance when it comes to what you're going to teach your child, you just need to be able to research and learn, read from a teacher's book, or maybe outsource if it is something that's, above your pay grade, and hire a teacher or tutor, take a co-op class to be able to have that taught to your child. That's all it means. So make sure you have a competent instructor. As far as attendance goes, compulsory attendance age in the state of Kansas is 7 years old. Compulsory attendance age is just a fancy way of saying the age that a child is required to go to school. They will be considered truant if they are not registered and attending a school. And that is 7 years old, which means in the state of Kansas, it's not technically required that a child attends kindergarten. Although most people do, and I still would recommend doing kindergarten, they don't actually have to register for that. The advantage of this is if you are a new homeschooling parent, your kid has never been in any school before, you can take their kindergarten year as sort of a trial year. See how it goes, see how you like it. And then when they turn 7, you can go ahead and register them with the state. Now, the only exception to this rule is that if your child has been in a public school or private school system prior to the age of 7, you pull them out and withdraw them, which we'll talk about those steps here in just a second. But if you pull them out and withdraw them, you do need to register them with the state immediately because they are in the system and they have to continue to be in the system or they'll be considered truant. So just keep that in mind with those laws. So how many days or hours do you have to do in order to be compliant with the laws in the state of Kansas? Well, this is just said as it needs to be the equivalent of a public school. It can be 186 days. It can be so many hours of instruction. I have printed off, and I will link again down below, this awesome PDF of frequently asked questions from the Kansas Board of Education about homeschooling in Kansas fact sheets, okay? And so it can kind of break down those exact hours and times for you to reference later, but just the equivalent of public school. Now, this can be 186 days, but they don't have to be all together. They don't have to be during certain times. So for instance, for my school, we homeschool September through like June or July is what we did last year. And we just take a lot of breaks here and there. You can do it, all year round and school year round, or do a more traditional schedule. But you do need to include attendance of either hours or days, just in case you were ever asked to prove that you had done an equivalent of public school. I will say, don't forget that field trip days, things like that totally count. They count in public and private school. Why would they not count here? So just keep that in mind as well. When it comes to what curriculum are you allowed to use, a lot of times people ask me that and they want to know, do I have to do certain subjects, or who should I purchase my curriculum from? The state of Kansas does not have regulations as far as that go. They allow you to purchase your own curriculum or borrow curriculum from someone. You can use online curriculum or books or whatever. You have a lot of freedom there. They also do not require any specific subjects to be taught. That being said, they do have a list on the websites down below. They have a list of what is typically taught in public school and as far as subjects go, and that can kind of give you a guideline of where to go. The only time that it's really going to come into importance, I think, on exactly which subjects you are covering with your kids is if they are choosing to do a college education later on, which they can totally do as a homeschooler. I can confidently tell you that, and we'll get to that in a second, but they can go about doing that by, if their particular college has a requirement that they have to have so many foreign language credits in high school, or they need service hours, and things like that. So you can always check out their Val Harrison at Practically Speaking Mom, great resource, guys. You should check her out on Facebook, and I will drop her links below, but she always recommends also checking out the Board of Regents. And for the state of Kansas, they control a lot of the scholarships and offer a lot of scholarships in the state of Kansas, so they have a breakdown very specifically of what kinds of credits or subjects that they would recommend you have so that you can qualify for the scholarships in Kansas. So just keep that in mind too, that's also a good thing to look at. You might not get everything perfectly, and when you get closer to that point, you might need to add on a subject or two, but no worries, it's really not that complicated. Since we're already talking about high school and graduating, and you might be freaking out right now thinking about doing that, I promise you it is not too hard. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. My husband is the middle of 8, and both of us were homeschooled, and all of our siblings were. We've all graduated and have had 0 problems. None of us have had any problems pursuing what we have wanted to do, whether that was college, whether that was going and getting a job, anything like that. Our homeschool diploma has been just fine. The state of Kansas does not issue a homeschool diploma in the sense that it doesn't come from the state, but you are able to purchase a diploma from local retailers. You can purchase one when you'll show your transcript, which, like I said, HSL is a great resource. They have a template already for you where you can just fill in the information for your transcript. And with those 2 documents, you should be perfectly fine attending any college or school or getting any job that you need. So another law that is required in the state of Kansas that is a lesser known law, I think, a lot of times, that our schooling, while there's not a requirement on the curriculum itself and what subjects we need to teach, it should be planned and scheduled and include regular testing. Now, this is all very broad. That is all the statement says. It doesn't expound further on that. So it's left up to interpretation a little bit. Here is kind of my thoughts, my personal feelings about the issue. You guys can take it or leave it. This is why I think it's important for you to check out the laws yourself so that you can make sure that you're interpreting the way that you feel comfortable with. But in the state of Kansas, like I said, planned and scheduled curriculum. So that could be as loosely based as, hey, we're going to go through this science book this year from beginning to end. That's our plan. That's how it's scheduled. We're going to be doing school Monday through Friday. That's scheduled. It could be more detailed, like having a written out lesson plan, things like that. That's up to your discretion and what you feel is adequate for proving if you needed to ever about your homeschool. All right, so that is kind of takes care of the scheduling and planning. Personally for us, when we get into our record keeping, which I have a video all about record keeping, if you guys want to check it out, I'll put it up in the iCards above and down in the description below. But the state of Kansas doesn't require record keeping in and of itself, but I always recommend it. It's so important, guys, to have records just in case anything were to come up. And HSLDA actually also highly recommends having records for your schooling. And you guys can see how I do it. It's pretty simple, but it's just nice to have sort of a visual and see how somebody else does it. And you can tweak and adjust it for you. Now, as far as the testing goes, this is a big question mark. I feel like a lot of people are not aware of this law, and it's really unclear exactly what that includes. It could include things, like just regular spelling tests, or, an oral narration of the book report you read, or just regular evaluations. It could also be talking about state testing and doing like fill in the bubble tests is what we call them in our house. Because it's not real clear, what I choose to do is we have our regular testing that we do. We don't really focus too much on testing in our schooling, especially since my kids are a lot younger, but we do have some to show for that. They do teaching textbooks, so they have quizzes and things like that I have records of. But we also shoot to try and do a fill in the bubble test once every 2 to 3 years, and part of this is just for me to help gauge how are they progressing. I don't really care where they land on it. Each kid is individual, they're unique, and I don't want them to ever see those testing scores or to be labeled by those testing scores, but I think it's important that they have experience doing a fill in the bubble test, especially if they're ever going to consider going to college. They're going to need to do ACTs, SATs, things like that. And I don't want the first time they ever see a test like that to be when it matters that much. So I want to have them have that discipline, understand how that works. And so that's how we choose to do it. Okay, so how do we withdraw our kids from public school? If they're already attending a public or private school, how do we go about getting into the homeschooling process? We know how to do it once we're there, but how do we do the process beforehand? Well, this is really important. It's simple, but important. And that is that even if you register your child under a private, non-accredited school as homeschooling in the state of Kansas, you must withdraw them from their previous attended school. Even if it's over the summer that you're pulling them out, or if it's in the middle of the year, you have to notify them. In writing, I would suggest, because then there's no question of it ever. You can keep a copy for yourself, for them. Send in a withdrawal letter, and HSLDA has a copy of sample withdrawal letters that you guys can use, so it makes it really simple, but letting them know that you're withdrawing them from that school so they can go to the next school. Now, this is so important because they will be marked truant, even if you have them registered under this non-accredited school. They need to let the other one know that they are no longer doing that. So make sure you follow that step for sure. Now, some public schools or private schools, it tends to be more of the case with public schools, but some public schools will give you a hard time about this, okay? They might say, well, we need to see, what are you planning on covering? What curriculum are you using? We need to approve this. We need to know, you can't withdraw your child before X and Y date or whatever. This is not the case. You can withdraw your child from public school or private school at any point in the year, even on day one. You can withdraw them as long as you have a written withdrawal letter and as long as you have plans for them for, another schooling option so they're not truant. The law says nothing about them having the right to do that. And so before you hand them anything or have a discussion with them about any of that information, call the HSLDA. This is why it's so important to get a membership. But call the HSLDA and ask them, how should I handle this? Are they allowed to do this? Because 9 times out of 10, they are not allowed to do that. They're overreaching. They're trying to make your life harder, trying to keep you there. Typically, from a lot of friends that I've talked to who have gone through this process, since I've not personally pulled my kids out of public school, I have pulled them out of private school and sent a withdrawal letter. But for those that have come out of public school, most of them, their experience is very pleasant. They were able to pull out no problem. But I have also heard of many situations where the school has caused a lot of problems. Talk to HSLDA. They will walk you through step by step what you need to do and what your rights are. I want to be above reproach with everything I do in my homeschooling. I'm not trying to hide anything. I have records. I have detailed records. I can show you what our homeschool day looks like, what curriculum, what progress we've made, and I'm happy to do that. However, I want to make sure I'm protecting my rights and my child's rights, and that I'm not giving them information that they don't really need to have. So just make sure you're checking with It Just All Day first so they can guide you and direct you on what to do in those situations. So I hope that's kind of given an overview of what steps you should take to get your child registered with the state, and also what the laws are and how you can go about finding that, and also some of the resources that are available. I am also going to post links down in the description about my videos on how to pick the right homeschool curriculum for you. It can be overwhelming to look at all the homeschool curriculum available, and there are so many great ones, but you have to find the one that's right for your family. So I'm going to post links down to that below, and also some other videos that I just think are helpful for new homeschoolers. If you guys have enjoyed this video, I would love if you guys would comment down below, share it if it's been helpful to you, and I hope that you guys will subscribe and check out my other videos. I can't wait to talk to you again. See you later. Bye.